Hello, my name's Nigel Thorne, and I'm concerned about the influence of gender identity ideology on our institutions. Leo Sapir from the Manhattan Institute recognises two mutually incompatible propositions underpinning gender identity ideology. Gender identity essentialism, the idea that we all have an innate gender identity. This claim, pushed by many organisations, including Stonewall, has no scientific basis. Gender identity essentialism is being pushed overtly on Stonewall training courses. Queer theory is being pushed covertly. People don't talk about it, but it is having a major impact on our institutions. In her seminal work Gender Trouble, published in 1990, Judith Butler, a major figure within queer theory, writes about the heterosexual matrix, the belief that to be normal, boys must be masculine and sexually attracted to girls, and girls must be feminine and sexually attracted to boys. Those that fall outside this matrix, Butler believes, are at risk of being persecuted. Butler wishes to undermine the heterosexual matrix, and she suggests we can do that by changing discourse, to downplay the significance of biological sex and elevate the significance of a personal gender. The desired outcome is for our young people to see themselves as gendered souls rather than sex bodies, and in this way undermine the social expectations that accompany being a particular sex. Stonewall have been pushing queer theory under the guise of trans inclusion. In a retweet of a link to an article by trans man Finn McKay, Kelly reiterates Butler's heterosexual matrix. The real gender ideology is the binary sex and gender system that requires all of us to be either male, masculine, heterosexual, or female, feminine, heterosexual. Bev Jackson from the LGBT Alliance writes, "Some people missed the decades in which we overthrew sex-based stereotypes. They missed the decades in which we fought for and won gay rights. This description sounds more like Afghanistan, where women and LGBT people are severely oppressed. Applying it to the UK is ridiculous." Queer theory seeks to dissolve binary oppositions. As Welsh lesbian Ceri writes, "In queer theory, any methodology which allows you to break out of the chains of binary thought is good. It isn't that they think that reality doesn't exist, it's that it is unimportant, not of interest, secondary to the social linguistic world that we inhabit." You see this in the current debate, where people put gender before sex, or act as if sex doesn't even exist, or think you are boring, binary, vanilla. The gender police, Nazis, for thinking that sex is real and it matters. In their mind, you are reinforcing binaries. This makes you the police, the Nazis, the baddies. You're the bastions of Western thought. You are siding with the colonizers. You are shining a torch into the recesses of the dusk and trying to establish which bits of it are really night and which are really day. The whole DSD, VSD intersex argument is a great example of this. In the queer theory argument, the existence of variations of sexual development isn't interesting because we should be doing our best to provide excellent medical care and fairness in access to services and opportunities. It's of interest only insofar as their existence allows the male-female binary to be queered. Now, the influence of queer theory is evident in the Welsh Government LGBTQ+ action plan, where there are new definitions of the words sex and gender. Sex, attributed to a person on the basis of a range of characteristics including chromosomes, hormone profiles and reproductive anatomy and functions. Some people's gender does not match with the sex they were assigned at birth. Currently in the UK, only 2 sexes can be recorded at birth, which excludes intersex people. Gender, a term that is used to refer to whether someone's internal sense of themselves is female, male or non-binary. People's gender does not always align with the sex they were assigned at birth. This term is sometimes used in the context of gender expression or gender identity. Despite gender identity not being a protected characteristic under the Equality Act of 2010, Nancy Kelly persistently, consistently and insistently maintains that it is.
So the Equality Act protects on the basis of both sex and gender identity.
The consequence of this idea is that gender non-conforming children are given a language that allows them to erroneously rationalise their feelings of disembodiment. Stonewall tell teachers that children as young as 2 recognise their trans identity and advise schools to stop using the phrase boys and girls. Others believe that this is dangerous advice. The LGBTQ+ action plan is being pushed strongly by 2 Stonewall apologists who are very close to Jeremy Miles. Lisa Power is a co-founder of Stonewall, and she is a huge cheerleader for both Jeremy Miles and the LGBTQ+ action plan.
I do a lot of international work, and people from other countries, particularly other countries in Europe, are really noticing that Wales is trying to fulfil its ambition to be the best country in the world for LGBTQ+ people. It feels really good to be in Wales, to be part of this.
Power and Nancy Kelly are evidently very close. In 2022, Power was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2022 British LGBT Awards.
Lifetime achievement. How does that feel?
I'm not dead yet.
No, thank God for that. No, there's so much work to be yet done.
Yeah.
But no, how does it feel to be recognised, though?
It's lovely to be recognised. There were 14 of us, and we all need that recognition. Mm-hmm. It was a cooperative effort, just as it is now.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I'm so proud to be up there with this woman because I think she's doing a brilliant job.
How do you feel?
I feel like for all of us that are in the movement, our job is to pick up this rock of oppression and discrimination and move it a bit further, and to get to know Lisa and be able to stand next to her and be like, yeah, okay, it's my turn to move the rock, and there'll be people that come after me that work for Stonewall and work in our movement that do the same thing. That is beautiful and kind of overwhelming, but I was saying to Lisa, I don't really have heroes, but she really is a hero of mine. So
Lou Thomas is a former chair of Pride Cymru and director, apparently, of a company called Recognition, co-founded by Welsh Government Special Advisor and fellow Penarth resident John Luxton. Thomas chaired the LGBTQ expert panel that was responsible for drafting the LGBTQ+ action plan. The plan promises to promote community cohesion. Surprisingly, Thomas herself does not seem to be someone who promotes community cohesion. In 2018, A Woman's Place UK organised a meeting at the Mercure Hotel in Cardiff to discuss proposed changes to the Gender Recognition Act. Thomas organised a protest. She explained, "This is a peace gathering called in response to A Woman's Place coming to Cardiff. We are seeing an increase in prejudice against the trans community. You just have to put the word TERF into social media to see it." In response to activist protests, the hotel cancelled the meeting and posted a tweet. Mercure Holland House does not tolerate any form of racist, sexist or bigoted behaviour. The tweet was later deleted. In 2020, Thomas posted a number of tweets attacking gender-critical women. Trans-identified male Cat Burton tweeted his appreciation of Lou Thomas and fellow lesbian activists Lisa Power and Ruth Hunt. In 2021, a group of academics from Cardiff University signed an open letter to the University Vice-Chancellor. The letter stated, "Dear Vice-Chancellor, we are writing to suggest that Cardiff University's membership of the Stonewall Diversity Champion Scheme should be reviewed. We support the rights of transgender staff and students, yet being associated with Stonewall lies in tension with 2 of the university's core values. Number 1, academic freedom, and 2, respect for the rights of all staff and students, including women." Nancy Kelly, Chief Executive Officer of Stonewall, has likened gender-critical beliefs to anti-Semitism. The core tenets of these beliefs are that sex is real and matters. The motivation for this comparison is to justify Stonewall's long-standing policy demanding no debate on transgender issues. A counter letter was written and signed by very many people. Lou Thomas commented, "So proud of Cardiff University, past and present. Just look at how this list has grown, showing that the trans community are loved, respected, and will be supported during the desperately unpleasant and dangerous attempts to attack and undermine equality." In the same year, when it was suggested that representative from the LGBT Alliance be invited to join the independent expert panel, Lou Thomas made her feelings towards the LGBT Alliance very well known. When a position is so fundamentally opposed to facts, reason and decency, we don't have to engage, no more than I'd invite the English Defence League to write a race action plan. In 2022, a group of gender-critical lesbians organised a protest at Pride Cymru. Thomas described Get the L Out as a toss-pot hate group, complaining they turn up to spoil an event with their exclusionary, backward bigotry and then pretend they're the ones being excluded. On the 18th of June 2018, both Power and Thomas were invited to a Vale of Glamorgan council meeting to discuss the Vale of Glamorgan Transgender Inclusion Toolkit. The toolkit includes this scenario. Scenario 1. My daughter doesn't want a boy changing next to her. What if he looks at her body? For example, in this scenario, it would not be appropriate to remove the trans person from the changing rooms if a concern is raised by a parent or carer. In this situation, it would be far more appropriate to look at offering an alternative changing arrangement for the child who feels comfortable around the trans person. A human rights response would be to state that although the individual in question may have the body of a boy, they are in every other respect a girl, and as such have the right under the Equality Act to change with the girls and to be treated fairly as such. It is the responsibility of members of staff to support both trans students and cisgender students to feel comfortable around one another. Power and Thomas were described as expert witnesses. The minutes of the meeting state, Ms. Lisa Power, MBE, who had also been a founder member of the Stonewall organisation and was an LGBT historian, stated that there were parallels today similar to the way in which attitudes to lesbian and gay men had been in the 80s and 90s, and asked the question, do you want to go down that road again? Ms. Power referred to a recent announcement by Welsh Government in relation to LGBT education and advice in schools, stating that this was an important step to supporting guidance for children and school teachers alike. Ms. Power referred to the fact that only a small number of people actually undertake transition, but that everyone was entitled to respect and support. Toolkits, like the Vale's suggested document, were about supporting teachers in schools in addressing and dealing with issues. Under the Equality Act 2010, single-sex changing rooms had been established and trans people, when starting transition, were entitled to use these facilities. There had also, she stated, not been any documented examples of issues that had been raised to date. Ms. Power also referred to the repeal of Section 28 of the Local Government Act 1988 and the well-informed statistics, for example, that 45% of young trans people had attempted suicide, and in her view, schools had a vital part to play in supporting pupils. Similar toolkits had already been agreed in other localities and were currently in use. The chair of Pride Cymru and a school governor in the Vale of Glamorgan, Lou Thomas, also informed the committee that 54% of trans people were bullied. 1 in 10 were subject to death threats, and nearly 80% of pupils had never learned the meaning of transgender. 1 in 3 transgender pupils were not able to be known by their preferred name, and 84% of trans people had self-harmed. The toolkit, she stated, meant something to trans children and their parents, and although not perfect, was a start. Committee was informed that We all want our children to be safe and supported and create active, positive, engaging students, and that treating people with respect was important. It was also important, Miss Thomas advised, that we should think about what message we'll be sending to children if the toolkit was not adopted. Section 28, she said, failed, and it had been a pointless and mean-spirited piece of legislation. The toolkit was adopted by the Council. Lou Thomas was pleased.
Well, we're pleased from Pride Cymru's perspective, and we're very encouraged that the Council have taken the eminently sensible approach to this and adopted it completely. Kids who are questioning their identities need support and encouragement, and above all, anything else, a school that's a safe environment. So this piece of document helps and assists schools to support their pupils. Okay. So from that, we're encouraged that it's been adopted.
As a blog post on the Transgender Trend website explains, the toolkit does infringe on rights specified in the Equality Act of 2010. In a letter written to the chair of the Arts Council of Wales in 2021, Dawn Bowden, Deputy Minister for Arts, Sport and Tourism, wrote, I would like Arts Council of Wales to implement the goals of the LGBTQ+ Action Plan. Under the Inclusive Workplaces section of the Action Plan, it states, Action number 42. Remove unnecessary personal identifications from recruitment practices, activities. Implement a new Welsh Government recruitment system which supports name-free recruitment markers such as name, titles, age and gender markers, removed or restricted where deemed necessary. Review gendered language and gender markers to recognise non-binary and intersex people in Welsh Government recruitment processes. Collect Equalities information separately from main recruitment documents and anonymise for use in policy planning. Outcome: remove barriers in recruitment practices and increased confidence in applicants. Non-binary and intersex people are not required to choose a sex gender that does not apply to them. Timeline by March 2023. In July 2023, the Daily Telegraph reported that the Arts Council for Wales would be changing gendered pronouns in internal documentation. Information from the Arts Council of Wales states that the public body is currently undertaking a general update across our policies, amending any specific references to gender, e.g. she, he, his, her, to they, them. A statement from the Council confirmed that documentation would be changed as part of our continuous review process, and that, if we come across gendered pronouns, we'll be replacing them for the words they, them. Action number 43. Provide equalities training that includes the needs of LGBTQ+ people to all public sector organisations. Activities. Review Welsh Public Sector Equality Duty regulations and reporting, including training. Identify existing resources for training required by public sector organisations in line with the Public Sector Equality Duty. Identify any gaps in current provision in this area and work with other equalities groups to ensure those gaps are filled. Ensure that intersectional equalities training is devised and delivered to public sector organisations in line with the Public Sector Equality Duty. Collaborate where appropriate and relevant with Wales TUC and trade unions to maximise workplace resources and reach. Outcome: all public service workers understand LGBTQ+ rights, needs and barriers. Public sector employers understand their legal obligations in relation to equality legislation. In Stonewall's annual report for the year ending March 2023, it was revealed that the Arts Council of Wales had contributed £89,700 of taxpayers' money to Stonewall coffers. In a Widening engagement action plan produced by the Arts Council of Wales, there were a number of actions required to be implemented by the Arts Council, who will be held to account by 3 organisations, one of whom is Recognition, whose director is Lou Thomas.